Today is Wednesday, June 4th, and I'm just wondering if we can look at the Texas Rangers through the eyes of their Hall of Fame broadcaster, Eric Nadel.
And now, a word from our title sponsor.
Eyeing retirement? Let us show you how to turn your nest egg into a paycheck with half the amount you've been led to believe. Fluent Financial combines in-house portfolio design and risk management with income-generating investments designed to accelerate your financial independence. Let us develop an effective portfolio strategy that works for you so you can retire sooner and have a better lifestyle. Fluent Financial can also implement a program that allows business owners to install a cash balance plan, which is designed to help drastically reduce income tax payments. You've worked hard to become successful. Let us develop an effective portfolio strategy that works for you. Learn more today about Fluent Financial. Retire sooner, better lifestyle. For more information or to schedule a meeting, visit fluentfinancial.com or call 972-852-4800.
Eric Nadel's been broadcasting Texas Ranger baseball for so long that, well, it's almost as long as there's been Texas Ranger baseball. This is year 46 for Eric Nadel doing Ranger games. A graduate of Brown University, he partnered with the late Mark Holtz for 13 years as an analyst and then a full play-by-play man for the Rangers since 1995. Tons of awards, including the Texas Sportscaster of the Year 7 times, but then the ultimate, into baseball's Hall of Fame in 2014. Thank you for the time, buddy. It's good to have you here.
Great to see you, Norm.
Eric, you have had a constant charity presence in our area for decades now. Last week, you had your annual Eric Nadel birthday bash at the Texas Longhorn Ballroom. How much did you raise for the Grant Halliburton Foundation?
Well, the numbers just came in yesterday, as it turns out, and they raised a record $173,000 this year. So the move to the Longhorn has proved to be prosperous for the charity, as well as really satisfying for everyone who went. And we had twice as many people as we've ever had before. So the added capacity of the Longhorn was a real boon to the whole event.
Well, Eric used to have the birthday bash at a wonderful and iconic place. You just outgrew the Kessler, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. The Kessler is a smaller venue. Our max there was about 350. They have 17 tables that we use for sponsors and 2 suites. And we sold them out. And the sponsors always came back year after year. So there was no opportunity for growth, no opportunity for other people to sponsor the event. And that's really what underwrites the whole evening is the sponsorships. And by going to the Longhorn, we were able to expand from 17 tables to 40 and from 2 suites to 9 suites, in addition to having the added capacity, for, the general public to go. And the shows had sold out so quickly in recent years at the Kessler, people who just didn't know it was happening until April, it was too late to buy tickets for the event in May. So by having it at the Longhorn, we knew that we'd be able to accommodate last-minute buyers and last-minute decision makers.
Now on to Ranger baseball. Eric, is there any explanation for the offensive funk of this team this year?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. The Ranger coaches wish they knew. Bruce Bochy wishes he knew. Chris Young wishes he knew. And I don't know if we can go with the Ron Washington explanation, that's the way baseball go, or if there really is something more easily explicable about this.
Well, having announced baseball myself for 15 years, every night in the booth is a joy. But I wonder if this season, where I think I have this correct, the Rangers have already scored 1 run or no runs in the game 19 times. I'm wondering if it doesn't get a little boring in the booth occasionally.
It's funny. We've talked about that over the course of the last week. Would we prefer old-fashioned Ranger baseball where they score a ton of runs but get outscored all the time because the pitching isn't good enough or the defense isn't good enough? And the thing about having the low-scoring games is they're always close. Mm-hmm. So in terms of it getting boring in the booth, it never does because the games are always up for grabs right to the end. The pitching is so good, we don't get blown out. And the hitting is so bad, we don't blow anybody else out. So the games are all low-scoring games. And they've actually been a lot of fun to broadcast.
In 46 years, how many times have you been able to say about the Ranger team you're broadcasting, geez, we have good starting pitching?
A handful of times. I think a handful. I think back to when the Rangers won the division for the very first time in 1996. And they had what we thought was a really solid rotation back then. They had John Burkett and Ken Hill as kind of co-number ones. They had Darren Oliver as a strong number 3. And they had Bobby Witt and Roger Pavlik as their number 4 and 5 starters. And that was a really solid starting rotation. I think of when they went to the World Series for the first time and they had Cliff Lee. They had Cliff Lee and they had C.J. Wilson as the anchors of their rotation with Colby Lewis. Those were pretty serious rotations too. Matt Harrison, Derek Holland. Those were good. But the only year the Rangers ever led the league in earned run average was 1983. You have to go all the way back to 1983 when you're talking about people like Charlie Huff and Frank Tanana, Mike Smithson, and John Butcher were in that mix. And that was the staff that actually led the league in ERA, and the Rangers led the league in fielding too, if I remember correctly, with an infield of Pete O'Brien, Wayne Tollison, Bucky Dent, and Buddy Bell.
Boy, you're bringing back memories here, buddy.
Yeah. Every time I see the Rangers ERA, at the top of that list as the number 1 lowest ERA, I think back to 1983. And it wasn't a bad year for the Rangers, but it wasn't a great year. I think they won 83 games that year. They were 83 and 79. Just didn't score enough runs to win, despite the fact they had the best pitching in the league that year.
Meanwhile, if you're general manager Chris Young, there are virtually no minor league options as some kind of remedy for what's happening on your club.
Well, they've brought up the one option, and that's Alejandro Osuna. He was the one guy down there who they felt confident could help. They've given shots to Dustin Harris and Blaine Krim, albeit limited. In the past, they gave a couple of shots to Justin Foscue, which he never took advantage of. Mm-hmm. So there really isn't anybody there breaking down the door. You've got Sebastian Walcott playing at Double-A as the youngest player in that league. And it would be a real stretch to think you could call him up at some point this year and expect him to help. I would think next year that becomes a serious option.
Is the Rangers blessing the fact that they're in the American League West? Because if they were in any other division in baseball, they trail right now by around 4 games. Were they in any other division in baseball, they'd trail by between 7 games and 10.5 games.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of parity in the division right now, and that can only benefit the Rangers. The A's are a bit of a soft touch, but not as bad as they've been in past years. The Angels clearly are an improved team. They've been flirting with 500. And then you've got Seattle and Houston, who both are strong teams, but with major areas of weakness, and certainly not the sort of dominant teams that you have with the Tigers in the Central Division, Yankees in the East Division in our league.
Chris Young has been incredibly aggressive in his few years as the Rangers general manager. As the trade deadline inches closer, Do you think there's any chance he can add a significant offensive player?
I don't think so, just based on where they are in terms of the payroll. If the owners are going to stick to their resolve to not cross the luxury tax threshold, they just don't have the room in the budget to add a significant player, whether it's a pitcher, because they could use some bullpen help, whether it's a pitcher or another bat. I don't see how they can do it if the owners are not willing to go over that luxury tax threshold. They're right up against it right now. And, they made a little bit of space when they waived Leody Taveras to Seattle. But if Tyler Mahle makes all his incentives, which he's on the way to doing, I think that the money they saved in Taveras basically goes to him. And again, they're right up against that threshold without any breathing room to be able to add a player who makes a few $1 million a year.
Nathan Eovaldi and Jacob deGrom are terrific pitchers, but Mahle has been sensational. Now, the one-loss record doesn't show it because they hardly ever score runs for him.
Yeah.
Is there any chance the Rangers might think of pulling a pitcher for a hitter trade?
I wouldn't rule it out. It depends probably on, how Rocker looks in these starts that he's going to make between now and the trade deadline. If it looks like Rocker is here to stay, then I think they have the luxury of maybe doing that. Also depends on how quickly Cody Bradford is going to come back and whether they can build him up as a starter or feel they need to use him out of the bullpen. Same with John Gray, although I have a feeling that they're going to use Gray to fill that hole in the bullpen as a power guy in the late innings when he comes back. And that's just my feeling. Nobody has told me that. I don't have any inside information along those lines. But that just seems to me to be the natural thing to do if they're solid in the rotation and Gray is ready to pitch again and they need help at the back end of the bullpen.
This is the last year of Bruce Bochy's contract. Do you get any indications if he wants to stay or go?
I have no idea. I just know that he seems to really be enjoying this, even with the frustrations of the team this year. He seems to be in a good mood every day. He's joking around and having a good time. So I don't see any signs that he's fed up with it. I don't see any signs, that he's ready to bail out. But it'll come down to family issues, I think. How much does his wife Kim want him home? How much does he want to be home as opposed to, on the road with the baseball team for 7 or 8 months?
Now, to finish, a few questions about Eric. You're now 74. Happy belated birthday.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for reminding me, by the way.
Do you have any feeling how long you want to continue doing this?
I'm going year by year, Norm, and just doing 1-year contracts. But the Rangers have been so understanding in letting me choose the number of games that I do. And I've done 100 games each of the last 2 years, which seems to be a really good number for me to give me enough time off in the summer to do some of the things I'd like to do in the summertime, music festivals and travel and that sort of thing. And the pitch clock has made the game so much more enjoyable to watch and so much less work for the announcers now that they've cut out 35 minutes of total dead time that we used to have to fill, that, I could conceive of my doing this for another few years. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I might reach 50 years of doing this. But at this point, I can't rule it out. At this time next year, if I feel this good, I'll sign up for another year. I'm already pretty much decided I'm going to come back next season, but going a year at a time, as long as I feel like this and as long as I'm mentally sharp enough and my eyes are good enough to do the job at the level I want to do it, I'll keep plugging away.
Okay, permit me an absurd question. The legendary Vin Scully broadcast Dodger baseball for 67 years and was broadcasting into his 90s. Do you think Eric Nadel might get close to that?
Not going to happen. No, not a chance. Not a chance at all. I would think when I get to 80 or close to 80, I'm going to have some serious thoughts about it.
Well,
And who knows? Tom Grieve his last couple of years just did 20 to 30 games. And that seems to be something that some guys are doing now so that they're not out of it completely. Or these guys who retire. I mean, two of my favorite announcers have retired in the last year, Joe Castiglione in Boston and Greg Schulte in Arizona. They're both doing games this year. They're retired, but they're the fill-in guys when the guys who've replaced them, take their games off. So maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe just retire after 50 years and be the fill-in guy and do whatever games Matt and Jared don't get to do.
Well, just for your own personal calculator, if you wish to catch Scully, you will be broadcasting at 95.
Yeah, I think they'll be dragging me drooling out of the booth at that point.
Dallas-Fort Worth has been blessed with some significant and wonderful voices as broadcasters for their team. Thank you for giving us so many years, and we look forward to so many more.
Thanks, Norm. This was so much fun.
God bless you, Eric.
You too.
Okay, I'm not a cook, but my beautiful Mary is, and I must tell you that we've fallen in love with OPA seasonings. That's OPA, O-P-A. Make healthy meals that taste wonderful. OPA's all natural. We use it on meat, fish, chicken, salad, veggies. Just sprinkle, cook, and enjoy. And we found a little OPA goes a long way. Order your OPA now from the website opafoods.com and use the promo code NORM, that's me, and get 10% off your order. Delicious meals, all natural, and save some money. What is not to love about OPA seasonings? What do you want from your favorite restaurant? Fantastic personal service, a cheery, welcoming, spotless atmosphere, and great food. The primest of beef, wagyu and lamb, incredibly fresh seafood, lobster, salmon, shrimp. Hall of Fame food from a Hall of Fame restaurant. 2 locations of Bob's Steak and Chop House. The original Bob's on Lemon Avenue and the gorgeous new Bob's at Craig Ranch McKinney.
Today's episode brought to you by Fluent Financial. Retire sooner, better lifestyle. By Bob's Steak and Chop House. And by OPA Seasonings. Savor the flavor in your food.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Just Wondering. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, hit follow, and then a fresh new episode will be delivered right to you. And should you know other people who might enjoy it, please share it with friends. The executive producer and sometimes on-air talent of Just Wondering is my wife, Mary Gans. The producer is Mike Matern. The technical director is IndyCar Tim Hand from FanStream Sports. We really appreciate your being with us. It's just fun to do, and I hope it's fun for you too. And realize that every day, I'll be just wondering about something.
And I'm Mary Hitchkus, and I'm just wondering too.